I know I can check in just telepathically with anyone, whether their spirit is in their body or not, right?
Hmm.
I can communicate as a medium. I can communicate with people in comas while they're detached from their body. Distance Reiki, I can connect with somebody who's in their body. And especially with the coma work, because they're still in this life, they haven't moved on yet, but they're in this space that I think the nonverbal autistic children also have available to them.
What we discussed today offers merely a glimpse of the possibilities available to help nonverbal individuals. If this connection were to gain a wider acceptance, especially with vetted facilitators working in hospitals, this would benefit countless number of people and their families. And for that reason, I'm so happy to introduce Julie Jonas, sharing her work with autistic children, coma patients, and interpreting the language of the body and biofield. KarmaHuB, sharing the spirit of the healing arts.
So I took this level one Reiki training in Frederick, and the people in my class, they were like, I think I feel some warmth here on this person, or I think I feel this. And I'm feeling like a
Hmm.
lot of things on this person. And so I'm immediately like, I want to go level two. Like, what? This is sweet. Like, I can do crazy things. This is one just first time trying, right? Because I'm just amazed. Reiki is amazing.
It
It's
is.
incredible. Yeah. So then I texted my friends and I was like, hey, I want to practice Reiki on people. I just learned level one. Like, let's all hang out and we can like have a game night. We can have food and stuff. That might have even just been my friend's recommendation anyway. But I was like, okay, can I bring my massage table and practice on you guys? I don't know how I thought I could do like 10 Reiki sessions in one day, but that was cute. But I just the first day practicing on people, I felt someone's whole soul. And like, I did not know this person on this level really, but I saw their dreams, their sadness, I felt it in my body. And I felt I cried. And I realized later at that time, I was feeling his mother's emotions for him, his mother's love for him. His mother had passed and she was
Wow.
there and I was feeling her and it was crazy. The mother's love that I felt through my body for this human being, I was like, do we need to date? Like, am I in love with you? Like, it was confusing.
Right. Wow.
It was
That's
really,
amazing.
yeah. And at the time, I didn't know I was a medium. So I was just really confused,
Right.
but it was cool. And then, like, the next friend came in, I put my hands on her. She immediately just started crying. And I knew all of this stuff was being released. And I had a few, I think there was one more, just crazy, beautiful experiences. Um, so I couldn't get enough. And I learned to just get really curious with it. Like,
Hmm.
if I'm practicing, like, what can I feel? What do I notice? Even down to like, is my stomach gurgling right now? Like, that is even a connection to that person's body. Like, everything that's happening during a session is significant. Same with tarot for me. Everything that I notice that comes up, it's a prompting, to look at that. It's something.
Yes.
So just going into like heavy observer mode, you know, is that's magic. And I think because of the depths of my shadows, again, like the depths of the pain that I felt and the range of emotions that I'm aware of, it helps me to like, oh, I feel that. Like when I'm
Right.
feeling something on somebody's body, that is a very relatable feeling. And I know exactly what that is.
So how long ago was this?
This was my first Reiki training was in December of 2021, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
And then in February of 2022, I did my level two. And it was like, whoa,
Yeah.
my psychic abilities. Was that the same for you? Where level two
Well,
just
well,
opened you
so
up?
so level two, it did open me up, but not in the same way as it did for you. Like you obviously are very tuned in to I mean, I'm very impressed with the stories I'm hearing right now. For me, I just stuck with myself. Like I did Reiki on myself and I could feel it, but I didn't dare venture out to anybody else. I worked on my dog. I worked on my son. I was introducing him to all of that.
How
Um,
old was
I,
he
I,
when you started?
I mean, a toddler, two,
Oh, nice.
1, 2, 3.
Nice.
And now he's actually very gifted in those ways. And he wants to be a therapist. So I think he'll do fantastic. Um, but yeah, so I pretty much kept to myself. Only recently have I really started to open up and going out and working with people. And yeah, I get very, very clear um, sensations in my body that mirror issues in their body. And it's very neat. But not you kind of started the race like running, like you just took off. It sounded like me. It was but with my Reiki too, at that point, it made me very sensitive to energies,
Mhm.
but um, more so just an awareness of like a electromagnetic sensitivity around. Actually, it's referred to as an allergy, if you could believe it. So I became very sensitive to cell phones and transformers um, and a lot of things really bothered me, and I really kind of thought I was losing my mind because I could feel stuff that you have no business feeling, right? And I went to my father. He's a retired doctor, and I told him, and he's just he just thought I was losing my mind. Um, as did most people that I was trying to share this sensation with, right? Um, but eventually, I figured out that I was now just very open, and I did not know how to protect myself from these frequencies, and I learned to better ground, and just got educated on the topic, and now I feel like I have a healthy sensitivity versus um, a an allergy
Allergy.
that
Wow.
yeah. So I mean, when this happened, of course, I started dive. I grew up in a my father's a doctor, mom comes from um, her mother was a nurse, and this, that, and the other. Um, so I dove into like medical journals and tried to find things from a scientific standpoint to explain what it was I was experiencing. And it was not very easy to find, but I did find it. It's out there. But I landed on this doctor who treated people with these hypersensitivities. And it's just a whole book of people experiencing what I was experiencing and some of the great lengths people had to go through to, some people moved to islands where they weren't around, cell phone towers, and I was like, I don't want to do that. you know,
So far.
I got to figure out a different way to do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Reiki too, absolutely, it opened me up, but for you, you're able to sense people's background and dive right in that way. For me, it was just kind of awareness of like the stuff that I can't explain. It's real. Like there's a whole nother level to life that was
Yeah.
not part of my belief system. And I'm still we're always trying to figure it out. But the more people I get to know, the more people that kind of live a little bit more in the ethers than I do, the more my fascination continues to increase. You work with people in, or have worked with people in a coma state, and with like nonverbal, like autistic people, children, adults. Can you tell me a little bit about all of that?
Yeah, the coma work was an accident. It was, well, I wouldn't say accident, it was unexpected. So I have a very dear friend of mine. I just went to her baby shower yesterday. I'm so excited for her. She had been dating this man for a long time by then, and he had a 17-year-old son. And she texted me and she said that he had gotten in a horrible car accident with his
Mm,
friends. and he was in a coma, and the doctors had said to her that he he may not wake up. If he does, he may be, because it was like weeks at that point. I don't remember exactly what the timing was, but he had been in a coma for a little bit there, and they were saying if he ever wakes up, he probably won't be able to speak. He
Wow.
probably won't be able to walk. And he played sports, and yeah, that was just. Obviously the his father and my dear friend, who was, standing in as mother for a few years there at least, and still is. They were terrified, right? They didn't know what they could do. He might die any day, any moment, and they don't know what's going on with him. And so I offered to just come do Reiki for him in the hospital. Just, maybe it could help. And
Right.
so I went, and it was so interesting. She said, she's like, can you feel him? Like, can you feel his body? I was like, yeah, I can feel him. And I would tell her, oh, I feel this within him. And there were some interesting things in there, like certain foods that he was craving, or just things that would come up, like when you do Reiki and you feel the other person's physical experience in your body, right? You feel that. Um, I was I was feeling a lot of that in mine. And I was also getting just a lot of like random symbols or random images in my mind with my eyes closed. Um, and then at one point, she's just, again, she asked, um, can you talk to him? She's like, can you just tell him that I love him? And I don't think that she had said I love you to him in person yet. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
she had. I don't think that she had, but she said, can you tell him I love him? And I just hear immediately in my ear, which I don't normally get a lot of clear audience, but I heard this sentence that was just like, I know, in that tone too. And I said that to her. She's like, oh my God, that's so him. And I just kind of smiled, and I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh, that's very teenager, you know?
Yes, I was going to ask
Um,
if I was a teenager because that's what my son would say too. I
yeah,
know.
I know. Yeah. Very teenager. Um, so again, I didn't really think much of it, but then it was interesting. His mother had passed in 2017, I think, and I could feel her strongly when I was working on him, doing Reiki on him. Um, and I could just feel her energy so present in his field and in his body. And I could feel him. There was just this feeling of like contentment and shock at the same time that I was feeling from him, where it was like he was with his mom for the first time since he was little, and he was feeling her energy. And I could feel that it was pulling him further away from his body, because
Oh,
yeah, she was cherishing him. She was, and he was cherishing that. Oh my gosh, and I have crazy chills. I can feel her now. And so I kind of just gave this little invitation mentally, energetically, to say to her, like, I feel that you're enjoying this time with him and you love him and you've been waiting to be with him again, right? But maybe there's more for him to do here first. Let's see. Maybe he needs to come back. If he's meant to come back, you got to let him go. Like, I know it's going to be hard, but you got to let him go. And I'm just feeling into her energy, communicating with her through my heart. And it was very powerful, very intense. There was also something in his body about connecting with it. So let me tell you how I know a lot of this stuff is metaphysical awareness of the body that I've learned through Reiki. So I've learned through practicing on people generally what is stored in different parts of the body.
okay.
So where we generally hold our sense of responsibilities is in our legs. right? Where we hold feminine energy is on the left side of the body, and where we hold masculine is the right side. So let's say I felt on his, I think it was like right here on his stomach, like right on his ribs on the right side. My hand was there, and I felt, um, I don't, I had an image of like painting something, some kind of art just in my mind while I'm in that spot. And I'm like, why is it there? But it doesn't feel like it's about him. It was strange. I said, is there a male in his family that is an artist? And she's like, oh, his uncle's an artist, and he used to spend a lot of time with his uncle. And there was something else that came up that was around his uncle that she's like, oh, yeah, that's his uncle. But he's alive. But it was this pull to like, okay, there's some kind of connection there with him, like a desire to spend more time with his uncle again. She's like, that makes a lot of sense. And just these strange things. I was just noticing, just observing everything that happened. I was there for a few hours and I could feel a lot of energy move. There was a lot of emotional stuff that just was built up and naturally, right? Um, and then a couple days later, he woke up and he his body state after the Reiki was way better. It was like amazing results. He woke up and um, he wasn't speaking yet. And so they didn't know, like, is he ever going to walk? Is he ever going to speak? And it was a couple days later, all of a sudden, he came to my mind and I heard him laughing. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like he was telling a joke. Like I could just hear him joking around. And I was like, that's weird. I'm going to text Diana. So I texted my friend and I was like, I could just feel Liam like joking or laughing or something. Like, I feel like that's a positive message. Like, that's coming soon, you know? And she's like, no, he literally just made a joke. Like, he's talking now. He just made a joke.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Crazy. Um, and so that was a beautiful story that just like through this Reiki experience, I was like, getting all this information from his body, so much information. And mediumship was coming in like it does with Reiki for me. And there was a lot of other stuff. That communication was curious, right? Her saying a direct thing to him and then me feeling a response. So then, not too long after, maybe 9 months after, maybe less, um, I had another friend who I'd known for years but hadn't seen in 7 years, maybe, um, whose dad was in a coma.
Okay.
And she posted on Facebook, just if anybody can do anything, thoughts, prayers, intentions, anything, please. And so I reached out to her and I said, hey, I can do distance Reiki for him and just see like what's going on. Um,
Hmm. Absolutely.
and let me ask you, when you do distance Reiki, do you get a lot of information?
I get about the same as in person.
Okay.
Um, I talk to a lot of people that feel like they get about 20% more effectiveness in, receiving information or the energy that they, um, exude through to the next person. I find it fascinating that a lot of people are like, I feel like it's a little more effective if you do it virtually.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I find that my physical healing is very strong in person.
Okay.
And my receiving information about the body is like I could write notes for days virtually.
Wow. Gotcha.
And so I think at that point, it's no longer Reiki what I'm doing there.
Right.
So I found this is the common thread through all of these things. And
It's
even
a
with the
it's a
nonverbal
different
autistic children.
yeah, it's a different state of consciousness. And
Yeah,
Reiki is that. Mediumship is certainly that.
yeah,
Um, Connecting in many fashions,
yeah,
etherically is certainly that.
yeah. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, and a hawk just flew right outside my window and is standing in my yard. Just a hawk just standing in my yard.
That's
Beautiful. Oh, I love that for me right now. um, so so anyway, I offered virtual Reiki because for me, I there's something about thinking about the person's energy field and just sitting in the moment, completely relaxed, not having to do anything, but just observing what comes up when I imagine their crown chakra, what comes up when I imagine just their overall energy field. And I'll write that stuff down. And it was interesting because when I first connected with him, I felt this insane amount of pressure on my right side of my head. It was so uncomfortable. It was so strong. And then I felt the need for sunlight, like asking like for sunlight, like I it was very strong. And so I texted that to her. And there were some other things too. I don't remember right now, but I texted that to her that there's this crazy pressure on his right side. And she said, he's been laying his head, like with his head on this side for the entire coma duration so far, which
Wow.
has been a long time. And I was
Wow.
like, you need to turn him. Like and I can't give medical advice, you know? So
Right.
I'm sure I didn't say you need to turn him, but I said his pressure is building up on that side from laying on that side for so long, it feels like. So then she said that to the nurse and they did turn him and it seemed to make a difference. I don't remember what she said about it, but they turned him. Um, and she said, the sunlight thing was crazy because right before I messaged her, she was in the room lifting the blinds. She noticed the blinds were down in this room for how long now? Nobody's letting sunlight into this room. And she said out loud to him, she said, you need some vitamin D, Dad. And that was when I texted her saying, like, there's something about him needing sunshine, you know?
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. So then I went to see him in person. She asked, like, there were some other things. She was like, that was incredible about, the pressure. And I wonder if it would be more in person, if you could get more information in person. And so I went down to Spotsylvania, I think, in Virginia.
Mhm.
Um, and when I first arrived, it was very heavy. His sisters had come, one of them from Florida, one of them from somewhere else, and their significant others were there. And they were seeing their younger brother like this for the first time. It was devastating. Everybody was
Right.
devastated.
Right.
And it was very heavy. And they at first were like, who is this person just coming here? And I was like, "Well, like, here to help, um, and my friend was like, she's a Reiki master. She's coming to practice Reiki on him. And one of them had Reiki before. So she was like,
Okay.
okay. Um, and so I started feeling things and would just out loud relate to the room. I'm feeling here, there's some of this going on. Or I'd ask a question like, did he hold on to a lot of this? Or did he find these experiences a lot in his life? Or did he have an issue with like depression and things like that? That I was just noticing in his body, just like I would normally with Reiki.
Mhm.
And then I would notice that one of the sisters would start asking questions. And and she's like, can you ask him? Can you get a response? I was like, maybe. Let's try. I'm like, why not try? And she asked a question about her kids, I think. And the response was something significant to her children. Like that one of them was about to do some kind of experience with like a zoo or something like that. And I saw a panda. And there was like,
Okay.
and he couldn't have known this in his body because he didn't have that update yet. But
Hmm.
when she asked him and he's in this astral space, he was aware all of a sudden of what she was doing.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I noticed like when the nurse walked into the room, I felt so much anxiety and fear. And when she started talking about a certain medicine, my body felt toxic.
Hmm.
Like there was like that he was trying to show that that medicine makes his body hurt. Or, but
So
I,
how did you?
I
How did you
didn't say
navigate
it.
that?
I
Yeah,
yeah, I just
it's a
said to
hard
the
thing to
family.
do.
Yeah, I just said to the family that he's definitely having an emotional response to her mentioning this medicine.
Mhm.
And the more she talks about the medicines, the more stress he's feeling because she's
Mm,
rattling off the names of we did this, we did that, and I could just feel his fear of not coming back basically start to
mm,
come up. It was like the more she spoke, the more that fear grew and that weight. And then there was tension between the sister, the sister's boyfriend or partner or significant other, and this man in the coma. And so she asked, is he upset that he's here? And I had to respond to that as well. And with discernment, because he responded, he was like, he's slippery.
oh no.
Yeah, I saw like a banana peel falling out of the hands. He's like, he's slippery, he's greasy. And it was just so crazy, just the interaction and navigating that and how to be like, okay, I'm not saying that to them. So can you tell me something else? You know?
Right, right.
Um, and so that's
I find it a little surprising that, someone who is kind of out of the body is having uh, a rather slanted remark about someone. Typically when you hear someone being out of the body, they have, more of enlightened perspective on anything and everything, right?
too
And
well.
and to be able to say, well, like that person's a little slimy, a little
Yeah,
slippery is
yeah. But I think they had that rapport too, the sister and him, and he had probably said something like that before. So he's just, that's just his. But yeah, I've noticed that with mediumship too. Not everybody is all of a sudden God
oh,
consciousness after passing. You know,
okay.
there's some stickiness still. Sometimes there's attitude.
Hmm.
Um, it's really interesting. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect that
Yeah.
at all. And in mediumship, that was a surprise I found. And I think over time they evolve. And over time, I've been communicating with this one spirit that I knew in life for a couple of years now, 3 years now, maybe. Um, and he's changed a bit. He's softened a bit. He's not as aggressive as he used to
Okay.
be. But he
Okay.
used to like mouth off about other people to me and like, yeah, anyway. It's interesting. You notice their personalities are still there. And especially with the coma work, because they're still in this life. They haven't moved on yet. But they're in this space that I think the nonverbal autistic children also have available to them.
Hmm.
This like astral space where they can know things that are in other people's awareness, right? They can know your thoughts or what you have experienced. Um, but yeah, so then it was really interesting him expressing through feelings then. It was like, okay, I'm not saying that, but express through feelings, like, what's the challenge there? And I expressed it to her. And then there was there was tension through that, right? He had left the room. This guy had left the room already. And then she asked. And
Okay.
so
Makes
then
sense.
he came back and there was this like, we're not talking about that anymore. We have this girl here. She obviously knows some really interesting things, like what are we going to ask? What's going to come up? Um, and so there were some really beautiful back and forth moments of like inside jokes and like the sister was really funny. She had a really great sense of humor. And so he would say things like, oh, you totally would do that. Or like he would say things that I would then relay. And the room was laughing. Like
Hmm.
the energy completely shifted once it was like he was back in the room, and
Right.
he could interact. And it was so fun.
But
So,
also, by you doing this, it's offering hope to the family. It's such a valuable service. Um,
yeah. And it
uh,
was fascinating what came through that too, because it was like he healed emotionally and they healed as a family that day in a really interesting way. Um, so there was again those inside jokes, the play, the banter, and then there are some moments with mediumship where I'm like, oh, this is going to sound so stupid. Like, this is the most random thing I could ask people, but they're showing it to me, so I'm gonna ask. When my hand was over his solar plexus, I saw a gigantic Cheeto
Okay.
in my mind's eye. I just was like, what? Come on, man. Like, is there something else behind that? Like, are we playing charades here? Is there like, okay, Cheeto, what's next? I was like, no, Cheeto. And I was like, fuck it. All right, guys. Is there any relevance with Cheetos? Like, does he have any connection with like Cheetos? And I see the sisters just being like, and my friend just, she said he had been living with her for some amount of months. And he said for Halloween, he was saying it repeatedly for the last week or 2 weeks before his coma. For Halloween, he's just going to grab a bag of Cheetos and be the Cheeto man. And
Wow.
he was so excited for Halloween. The last couple weeks, he's pumped about Halloween. I'm going to be the Cheeto man. I'm Chester the Cheeto man. And so me saying that, it was in his solar plexus, it was like him sitting in the realization that he's not sure he'll be here for Halloween or not, right? Like he was really looking forward to that. And I could just feel this kind of endearing seriousness shift in him where it was like, I don't know if I'm going to come back, but like, man, I still really want to do that. Like if I come back from this, Cheetos. And so when I shared that, there was this beautiful warmth and everything. And then I felt there was so much laughter and growth and love in that room. And then I felt here in him uh, this, I don't remember what the sensation was specifically, but there was something here. And I thought about it. And this is you could do so much with knowing physically what's going on in their body when you think about the metaphysical alignments and the context of that part of the body,
Hmm.
then you know what emotions behind it. You don't have to feel it, but you can know by knowing what's there. And so, what do you think of this spot as? I mean, I think of it as, first of all, flexibility, right?
Okay.
But what do we do with this part of our body? We bring people in, right? We can bring people in or we can shove people away. We usually lock arms with people like this. We
Okay.
carry things. But it's very much like an interlocking for me or like holding. And I found the forearm is very much like companionship uh, right here. And I just had this really strong sensation. And I realized as I was like, okay, tell me more, it was that he was feeling that this experience allowed him a lot more flexibility and spaciousness with who he lets in. And it was about this man that he had this tension with. But this moment had brought his love there. Like this man was here for him, and they were all laughing together. They were all in it together. And I could just feel this like strong desire in him as I was feeling here. I put my hand there because I felt it in my body, right? And so I put my hand there and I could feel him just being like, I should let him in. Like I should be more flexible. I should be more kind. Like and just allow that I think it was like spaciousness to allow people in. Um and I shared that message. They were all crying. It was so beautiful. It was so lovely. Um and the next day, his tests were complete 180. Every test. They almost
Wow.
took him off oxygen like the next day.
Wow.
And when I went to see him that morning, the doctor had told my friend He's not, he- we're probably going to have to take him off oxygen and just let him pass because he's not coming out of this, I don't think. They had said that.
Wow.
And so this was her last ditch effort. Like, please, would you drive all the way down here, and do Reiki in person? And so then again, the next day, complete 180, total difference. And I could feel it when I woke up. It was like I just thought of him to do a check-in, like, how's he doing? And it was beautiful and lovely. And I texted her and I was like, man, he feels amazing today. What's going on? She's like, I was waiting to see if you knew already. He's incredible. His tests are amazing. He had been in a coma for months. And then the next day, it shifted, felt very different. And then the, the most amazing thing happened. He started channeling basically a goodbye to his daughter through me.
Oh, wow.
And just, yeah, through music, through lyrics. It was fascinating. I do that a lot. I channel through music. Um, and just allow like whatever Spotify is going to shuffle on whatever random thing I touch on my phone without looking. It's going to be messages. And I just know sometimes that if I do that, it's available. And the messages were so specific of him just feeling like he had healed, he had accepted himself through the emotional stuff that happened yesterday, like not just with the family. He moved through a lot. He energetically moved through a lot in that Reiki session. And just all of these beautiful messages of how much he loves her and how much he went through in his life and what it felt like. And so many messages that just guided her through his passing with such love. And he passed, I think, the day after the next one.
Okay.
And so it was like healing and communication and mediumship all in one, couple day period. And it was profound,
Wow.
incredible. Yeah. So then when I listened to the telepathy tapes, I was
Yes.
like, okay, I know I can check in just telepathically with anyone, whether their spirit is in their body or not, right?
Hmm.
I can communicate as a medium. I can communicate with people in comas while they're detached from their body. Distance Reiki, I can connect with somebody who's in their body. And so I went on this Facebook group that I was in that was like autism and telepathy and gifts, psychic gifts or something like that.
Okay.
I joined it after the telepathy tapes, and someone had asked me, have you ever tried communicating with a nonverbal autistic child? And I was like, no, but I wonder if I could. And so I went into that group and I just posted on there like what I do, the
Hmm.
fact that I've communicated with people in comas and spirits who have passed. And I said, I'm curious, like, is anybody willing to let me try to connect with their child? And I can tell you what they're feeling in their body and anything else they want to communicate. And I did, and it works. I mean, it's
Okay.
it's crazy. The stories are so beautiful and they're so deep and there's so much to say. There's so much that they share, not just through impressions of things they want to say, but through their body and what they feel in their body. Um, and you could 100% do this kind of thing. If you do virtual Reiki and you can feel things in your body, like people need that. These kids need
Oh, yes.
somebody to be a voice for their body. Like, for example, there were two different children who I connected with across the country, just virtually, uh, who I could feel they were having like bladder issues. It was like I could feel like I was holding it for way too long, or feeling a tension in my mid back from one of the children that hunches over a lot. And I could feel that the point needed to just have pressure right there and that they needed to ground on the floor, like lay on the floor. And so I, relayed that information. And
Wow.
there were a lot of profound things that came through for the mothers specifically. all of the children had something to say about their mothers that was like, sounded like angels speaking them. Like they all just have this, like what you would expect from spirits, that like higher consciousness awareness.
Right.
It seems like these kids have that. And they would say things like one of them, the mother asked me to ask him, how can she support him right now? And his response was like laughing. And he was like, I could just see it. I could feel it in my mind. Um, that he's like, you know exactly what you're here for, mom. Like, you know what you're doing. You don't even have to ask because you naturally are here to advocate for me, to guide me, to care for me. And it is natural for you. So why are you even asking? You know what to do, you know? It was beautiful. Another one called himself a light bringer. He
Okay.
said he said he was a light bringer and that he was here to show people. It was crazy. He showed me bugs and sticks and a bundle of sage. And it was like, it doesn't matter if you're in your shell, your body, physical body, or
Okay.
if you're not, we all have the same energy within us. And we both, like, we all have, it's the same. It's like the same consciousness is within every one of us, whether it's a bug or a bug that's already left its body or the sage and you're burning the sage. It's all the same. It's all the same. And it was like profound messages that he was trying, like really wanting to show and wanting to get out and these different facets of it. And so the mother is not like woo woo Julie, you know, and I'm telling him, your son's a light bringer. And he says, um, but even that made sense to her because this boy, there's just something so light and magical about his heart. And I could feel it. It's like I felt his personality so strong. And I'll tell you, later that day, I connected with his energy just like as like a friend, you know, just to
Okay.
be like, what do you think? Like, do you know what I'm supposed to do? Like, do you have access to my path? You know? And I just kind of was like, can
Oh,
you
okay.
give me a little guidance? You know?
You were calling on him for advice.
Seriously, because he's a light, when he said he was a light bringer and what he showed me, the visuals were so profound and like really deep, like crystals and light bending and all of this crazy stuff. And so I I felt so much comfort from this child and like so much, it was like the feeling of already knowing what I'm going to do fueled with this like angelic sort of like higher picture. They all have this sense of like higher picture, it feels like. But then at the same time, they're also just kids. So one of them was expressing, he was showing me he wanted to go play outside in dirt and have sensory play with like dirt and bugs. This is actually same child with other kids nearby. And he said that he doesn't have to communicate with them or play with them, but because he, before this body, was used to being like a collective consciousness.
Okay.
So, like, he was not just one individualized consciousness in wherever he was before this life. He was like unity. He was unity in some way. He was a collection of, I don't even know how to explain it. But so then to incarnate here, he individualized. And so to just be around other spirits helps him feel at home because it's like he's in their energy field just like he was at home, you know,
Oh.
which was really fascinating because, and I told the mom that. She said we actually just started talking to somebody about doing virtual play dates where the kids play outside on Zoom together.
Oh,
Um,
neat. Wow.
yeah, and really, there were a few other things, different children too, um, that they shared some kind of information. Or like one of them, I all of a sudden felt like I was in water, and my body felt extremely heavy, and I
Okay.
had to lay down on the floor in my office. I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I didn't intentionally connect with anyone, but I was thinking about, oh man, I got to connect with that child still today. I told his mom I would. I've been in my own head. And so then all of a sudden I just felt water and heavy. And so I lay down on the floor and just felt this acceptance of like, this is my body's limit right now. Like, I need to just rest. And I knew it was this boy at that point. I was like, oh, like I have a lot of energy right now and I'm not in water. So this is not me. And so I reached out to his mom, and she said he literally just now got out of the shower and immediately had to just go, relax. And he definitely feels very heavy in his body a lot of the time. Like he has a hard time with his body. But the message was really cool because it was that he was really starting to get into the space of knowing his body's limits better, like growing into knowing when it's okay for his body to rest or when his body needs rest, which was really cool. So
Okay.
just it could be anything, any message, any feeling, any sensation. But I can ask questions also and get responses. And the first time I did it, um, the the mom was sitting in the room with him, and I asked her because I think that consent is really difficult in this space, right? Like when you do Reiki for people, you have to have consent, right?
Right.
And I think that connecting in this way, even more important, right? To like telepathically read someone's body emotions, right? Like that's very touchy. So I asked her to just ask him, can this woman communicate with you through your thoughts for a minute?
Right.
And he looked up and then he just went back to what he was doing. And I said, is that a good thing? She said, no's are obvious for him. So it's not a no, he's cool with it.
Okay.
So, so I did. And this was actually the light bringer thing right away. He went deep in. And as I'm recording a voice message to relay the information to the mom, and it was like an 11-minute voice message. After I sent it, the mom said, while you were recording it, he got up and got in my lap and was like making me put my hands on his face and like on his body, and so excited. He was like so excited, climbing in her lap, like, it's me, it's me, it's me, while I'm sharing what he's saying. Yeah.
Wow.
He was
That's amazing.
Yeah, he was
Oh,
playing, and then he
I'm getting
gets in her lap
chills.
and is freaking out. Yeah, like, Mom, look at me. This is who I am. This is who I am.
Oh,
Yeah, incredible, incredible. And so I find these beautiful families are everywhere, and they
yes.
are drowning in bills, most of them, because so much physical therapy, speech therapy, all of these resources they need. And they can't all afford to have one-on-one sessions with me. They don't all have the time to go learn to be a Reiki master or to, do all of these things. And I can't help all of them one-on-one either. So I was really sitting with, how can I help people? How can I reach people and share, like, we can do this. Like, we have this ability as humans. It's not just me. People need help and we can help them. And these moms, all they want to do is help their kids. And a lot of them already have a crazy intuitive connection with them.
Yes. Mhm.
So I was like, I've got to find a way to teach people on a large scale for cheap. Like how can I teach people how to communicate with their children or how to read their kids' bodies when they can't speak for their bodies? And so I've just been like super busy developing this course on just intuitive development. That's like to start anyone on their healing journey, to start anyone on trying to communicate with to be a medium or to communicate with their autistic loved one, nonverbal loved one, somebody in a coma. The foundation is all the same, I think.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, I was actually having breakfast with my parents this morning, and I was talking to them a little bit about um, uh, this, you know, interview that we're doing,
mm,
and I was talking to them about people in coma and autistic kids, anybody nonverbal, and my father, um, he's starting to get a little bit more curious about all of this. He's very much kind of a skeptic, and this isn't really his thing, which is totally understandable.
mhm.
But he was like, look into locked in syndrome. And I was like, what's that? He says, well, it's when people have voluntary muscle paralysis. Um, they, they can't speak. And he says, I'd be curious to know whether that's a group of people that could be helped. You could communicate with them.
Wow, yeah.
He says they do register as an EEG or EKG. When you speak to them, there is that movement so that they know that they
Mm,
can hear on some level.
mhm.
But that, Western medicine is kind of at a loss as to what to do because they just can't do anything voluntarily. They can blink, their body functions work, but that's it.
Wow.
So, I mean, everything you're talking about applies to, so many people that just aren't able to communicate
Yeah.
anymore. Um, and I would love to see this more accepted and people that are vetted actually be allowed into hospitals. Fortunately, you were kind of snuck
Yes.
in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that worked.
Yeah.
But imagine if, you know, nurses would actually recommend services like this by, hand selected mediums or people that
Mhm.
can connect to these individuals. That's what I'd love to see. I'm seeing more and more of a merger of these two sides. The woo woo meets Western medicine, but they're the science is starting to bring us together to some degree,
Yeah.
and that is a whole class of people that really could benefit from this happening
Yeah.
on a much larger scale.
Yeah. And I mean, specifically aware of that, of those people, but that makes so much sense. And wow, yeah, the help that, that's available potentially for not just those people, for so many people, like you said, so many people could benefit from this. And so many people, I think, are already in some ways doing it but aren't aware that like the thoughts you get are not random, the feelings you get aren't random, and so even just holding people's hand through like, hey, have you ever experienced any of these things? Okay, cool, so you're psychic.
Right,
Or like,
right.
okay, cool, so like subtle senses are real, right? Like we have our normal senses and then we have our subtle senses,
Mm-hmm.
and whether you see them as psychic abilities or like clairvoyance, that's kind of where I think the hole is, that people don't see themselves as able, right? They'll see,
Gotcha.
oh, well, this girl, had some experiences when she was young and she's gifted, right?
Right.
I don't think it's a matter of being gifted or not. I think it's the level to which we have met ourselves inside, like the depth of our shadows of how we've witnessed ourselves, that's the potential for subtle sense awareness, for telepathic ability, I think,
Mm.
And I found in teaching people one on one in person that that's true, that everybody has access to it. If I teach them what to look out for, they all of a sudden, level one, doesn't matter.
Mm.
Except there was one student who couldn't, and it was actually somebody who said to me, I don't experience anger.
Mm.
And so it's a great indicator of they haven't met themselves in the shadows yet. And so they can't really understand. It's like you can't receive information from the unknown if you will not enter the shadows. If you're resistant to the shadows and you can't look in them. So
Right.
um yeah, there are a lot of practices that I think that people, if they just tried this practice or these practices, then they'd be able to see like, oh wait, I'm clairvoyant, you
Right.
know? And then that comes online, and it's actually so beneficial, not just for psychic readings, right? But for knowing, if I put my hand on this part of my body and I see something, it's a message. We can decode our own trauma and shed and release things if we know what's there, you know?
So you were talking about a workshop that you were putting together, a program that
Yeah.
you're putting together. Do you
Yeah.
have any do you have any tips? I mean, I know you just kind of shared one right there. Do you have any additional tips that you might be able to recommend to someone to try and tune into themselves or even others?
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually I put a course together that's just like an intuitive, like intuition one-on-one,
Okay.
unlocking or understanding your intuition 101. And in there are a handful of different practices that are either like um, allowing your body to show you your strongest clear sense is one of them. So you want to try it?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So close your eyes if
Okay.
you feel comfortable and take your breath in. Just kind of feel into your body for a second, just being here in the moment. You don't have to do anything in particular, just settling in for a sec. And I want you to visualize whatever that means for you. Think of in your mind a polar bear.
Got it.
Do you see it? Describe what you're experiencing.
I'm seeing him here, and it's a white polar bear. I guess that makes sense.
Mhm.
um, and just kind of his profile image of the polar bear.
Okay. Do you see colors, textures? Do you hear anything? Do you feel anything?
Hmm. It's almost as if the background has been cut out, and it's just his profile.
Hmm. Okay, so it's an image, really,
Yes.
an outline
Yes.
image. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. So that is a really good indicator that you have the structure for clairvoyance, right?
Okay.
You can see in your mind's eye clearly. If you try, you can see in your mind's eye an image, right? So uh, the fact that it's an outline but not detailed
Hmm.
shows, clairvoyance may not be upfront images for you or scenes, right?
Hmm.
But you may have, when you close your eyes, do you ever find like shapes or like lines? Or
Sure. Yeah.
so what you can do is you follow those shapes or you let them show you more.
Okay.
And so let's just try this. Close
So
your
so what
eyes.
so what you're saying is I've got the beginnings of that, but there's room for improvement.
Well, so it's a jump off point. So that's
Okay.
actually a lot of times that's how mediumship can come through for me just like that sometimes,
I see.
where I'll see, for example, I'm seeing like a chat box shape where it's like a circle, but then there's a little corner sort of thing. That's obvious for me. That's communication, right? So if I close my eyes, what else do I see? I'm seeing like a squiggle like this. So they're just basic shapes, right? I'm seeing a squiggle like this, and it reminds me of sand, maybe. Like it's kind of looks like sand, like sand art where you wipe it clean and you just do this. And so then I think of what does that remind me of? Like that's seemingly a random thought, right? And we
Hmm.
all have these seemingly random thoughts. But what do I associate with that, with like those things that like sand art? It's like this impermanence for me. Or like you go like this and it's like whatever work you just did, like I'm thinking of America's Got Talent, there was like a sand artist.
Yes,
And you did you see that? It
I
was
did.
cool.
It was amazing.
And
Yes.
he had these profound spiritual messages in some of them too. And
Okay.
just beautiful. It was like at first it was so unclear what he was doing. But then as the picture started to come together, you're like, oh my God. Like
Right.
so I just channeled randomly from a chat box and a line that went like that, a full message of communication is like that, right? Where
Okay.
this just came out of nowhere. That America's Got Talent guy, out of nowhere, random thoughts as I'm saying it out loud. So a practice that I do all the time to develop this is I will just practice observing. Like I'll go for a walk and I'll just do a voice memo on my phone. I'll just open voice memo and just let it and say, I'm feeling whatever I'm feeling in the moment. And then if I notice something on my walk, if the color, the vibrance of that plant is sticking out in a weird way, or if I notice something, if I see something in someone's yard and it brings up a memory in me, I notice all of it and I say it out loud. Because then I'm noticing what's coming to my attention and being curious enough to see like why? Why did that just make me feel this? And just following whatever comes to my mind, whatever comes to my field and observing. And it's like you strengthen that ability to interpret messages that come in because you're really just like taking in every little detail without judging it to be not
Right.
important.
It's trust. It's learning to trust
Yes.
in these little messages, these nuances that you
Yeah.
receive.
Yeah. And so much of my development, like people say, wow, all that you can do what you do now and you only learned Reiki a few years ago.
Mhm.
Yes, because I am so curious and I'm so observant. And so I just pick up all of these things and see how they piece together. What do they mean? Why am I seeing that? So just being really curious. And so I have in this course, but deeper, it's a community. So there's a community platform. It's on Mighty Networks. Have you ever used Mighty
I'm
Networks?
not.
Okay, I'll
No.
share that for. So it's a community platform, and within it, and there's a monthly. It's $20 a month because I was
Okay.
like, people can't afford. A lot of people that I know that need Reiki from me can't afford my sessions.
Right.
They're not outrageous, right? Like, but it's hard right now in this economy. Like, it's hard. And so I'm just like, okay, everybody needs to know this information. Like, people need to know how to listen to their body. We should have been taught this as children, you
I know.
know? So okay, join this group, you can join this community area. And for $20 a month, you have this intuition. There's so much in this class, and it's just
Okay.
free. I'm just putting it in there for free. And I think it doesn't matter if you want to communicate with people in comas or if you just want to navigate a time of chaos, like to be able to do there's like energetic hygiene and grounding practices integrated in all this stuff. Like we as a species need to go inward to clear out, whatever's
Right.
holding us back from being of our best service right now in this time, I feel like.
Well, and I also want to remind people or let people know that, um, so it doesn't cost much money to get attuned in Reiki.
Yeah.
Um, right. And you could just do it. I mean, for me, I just worked on myself for really years, and my dog and my toddler.
Mhm.
Um, and it probably cost from like I think it was $100. So really not much money at
Amazing.
all, right?
Yeah.
And I would just sit back, I would watch. So I typically would watch TV and give myself Reiki. Now, it's probably a good idea, right? I know it's probably a good idea to set some time aside and really kind of focus and, you know, let that light column open up and let the energy kind of flow through you. That's probably the recommended way it should be done. But me, um, I would throw in some Seinfeld or something funny, um, nothing like Saw or Die Hard or
Yeah. Something
anything,
light.
right? Something light, and I would just I would just light up and I would be completely energized. So I'd be watching TV, enjoying myself, and just letting the energy flow. And a little time goes by, and I'm really quite literally euphoric. Um, and
Wow.
I did that in a time that I was going through a divorce, and I was heavily invested in real estate, and that wasn't going so well years ago,
Mhm.
and it just completely put me in a different state. Um, and other people didn't know about it. I kept it totally to myself, but really it changed my world, right?
Mhm.
And I just continued to do that. And, since I've certainly gone further and further down the rabbit hole. Um, but there are very simple, if you just step outside your comfort zone a little bit, open up to some new ideas, new concepts. Well, I mean, Reiki's been around, or at least energy medicine has been around for thousands of years. Reiki, I guess, that label since what, the 80s. But um, it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be
Yeah.
very simple. Um,
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's accessible for anyone. Anyone can learn Reiki. And I
yes,
think that a lot of people don't really, like, if they're not planning to be a Reiki practitioner, then they won't necessarily seek out learning Reiki. But the potential benefit of knowing how to give yourself Reiki is profound. Like you said,
yes.
even just watching TV. And I know a lot of people who did Reiki level 1 training, at least, some of them
Hmm.
level 2, who didn't really do anything with it. Like maybe every once in a while they'll feel something come up and give Reiki on themselves. But a lot of them just don't know what to do. Like, or maybe they learned what to do, but they haven't found the practice that feels good for them for
Right.
healing themselves. So they're like, I guess I'll do a self session. But you found a unique thing that works for you. And I found sitting in a hot tub, even with 5 other women in this public hot tub with me. Like I go to the
Okay.
gym and do Reiki on myself
There
in
you
the
are.
locker room with
Yeah.
other women in the hot tub because for me, the water, first of all, the water and the way that it works allows me to move things differently, it seems. But the vulnerability of allowing someone see me do this, which is weird, and
Hmm.
seeing me cry, I cry when I give myself Reiki. Like
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So that vulnerability in itself allows even deeper healing for me to allow
And
myself to be seen. And
mhm,
yeah, and so I found that if people just talk more about, I actually found that this really works with Reiki, or Reiki's really cool for doing this thing, have you ever tried this? If people get together and talk about uses for
right.
Reiki, then it wouldn't be, you wouldn't find so many really sad attuned
Right.
people, right? Or more people would get attuned, right?
Right.
And develop that. So I actually have a section in my community where we have a group where we talk about and share Reiki practices, like tips we found with Reiki, ways to deepen your own self Reiki, or practice on others. And yeah, I think it's so important. Obviously, I'm a Reiki master, so I'm for Reiki, but Reiki is so much more than healing others. It's so profound. And like you said,
Yeah.
it's cheap to learn.
It
And I
is.
think I
Well,
think
it
that
didn't
a
used to be.
Reiki,
It used to be really, I mean, it is sacred, but it used to be like really guarded as sacred.
yeah.
So to be attuned used to have a very hefty price tag.
Mm.
And now I think it's, just generally known that more people need to have
Yeah.
this gift. So instead of making it exclusive, it's now really something that all people should have. I mean,
Yeah.
I even when I'm driving in my car, I do a lot of driving these days, and I just give myself Reiki while driving. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Sweet.
and it makes for a very blissful travels.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
amazing.
yeah,
I found also that in this trying to figure out how to teach people how, like, I'm like, oh my God, I can communicate with people who are in a coma. What do I do with it? How do I tell everyone? How do I share? We can do this. Um, and I think that in building out this process of how to teach people, I've learned that there has to be an activation of some sort, an energy
makes sense.
activation. Yeah.
Mhm.
And Reiki is, I think, the easiest one. The easiest activation you can have. It's either activation through extreme trauma and pain, or, activation through transcendental meditation is another way if you get really into it and you continue on. Have you ever done TM?
I have not.
It's sweet.
I hear great things about it.
It's sweet. Also very expensive and very gate kept, but
Yes.
so Reiki, much cheaper, really beautiful. And that activation, I think, opens up from there the ability to sense things in your body so much. It's
Yes.
incredible.
In a nutshell, how would you summarize some of our highlights for today, from
Hmm.
today?
I think one of the biggest themes is we all have this strange connection with each other that you can access and you can learn to tap into to communicate or to gain information or even just to tap into yourself more deeply, right? Um, and whether you come at it from Reiki or mediumship or the medical field, like no matter where you come at this witnessing, I guess, right? This like
Mhm.
deeper knowing. We all have access to it. And so finding the thing, I think we didn't, this isn't a highlight reel because there's no information, but to find to find the thing that sparks enough curiosity, to like, what does that mean about reality? Can I go a little deeper into that
Mhm.
space? I think we all have a different endpoint of being able to access this higher knowing, So our endpoint is Reiki, right? But maybe some other people's um, way of falling into a deeper awareness of self and others is through some crazy scientific fact that they found that shows a crazy symbiotic relationship between these two plants or whatever
Right.
else, just something that's so curious that they can't unthink it, like they've got to know more, they've got to go deeper.
Love
And
it.
I found, yeah, just different things just spark my curiosity. The telepathy tapes, it is sparking curiosity everywhere.
Yes.
People can't ignore it. They're all of a sudden like, whoa, what do I believe is real? Like, what is
Right.
reality? And it's so
Yeah.
exciting. Like, I want to be the one to be like, oh, you want to come down this crazy road of reality? You want to go here? It's really interesting.
So is there anything else that you wanted to hit on before we wrap this up?
um, yes, yes, because I just looked down at this post-it note and it stood out to me. So, did you watch Cory Booker's Filibuster at all?
I don't think so.
That's not, I'm not one to normally just go watch a Congress meeting or,
Okay.
Senate hearings. I'm not, I avoid politics, to be honest. But I felt called to watch what he was saying. There was something very significant about him speaking that day. And something that he said was, you can't have great courage without great fear. And
Mm.
we are
Mm,
all collectively in this really tense, sticky spot. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, we're all a little scared right now, right? Like, some people are losing their jobs. We're affected very strongly by it in this area, DC area. But everybody's feeling the impact. And so I think I just would love to share this message as somebody who has connected with the other side so deeply and with um, higher entities. Like, I've had crazy experiences so far in energy work. The more that I open up to this astral space, the more I realize I don't understand. Um, but I just want to share that we're all going through it, and this is such a potential activation portal for everybody to find their gift and help heal the world with it and be of service. Like, you have such a specific gift that you have, what you can do and your perspective has been molded by very specific personality traits and scenarios and relationships and environments that make you just the right person to share knowledge in a certain way, right? Everyone. And so if we can take a step back from the fear and the pain and the chaos of right now, like there's hate and chaos and, just so much chaotic energy. If we can take a step back and see this as an opportunity for courageous action and really getting grounded in who we are and how we can serve and how we show up for other people, how we connect with our community, how we connect with ourselves and speak with ourselves. If we all did that right now, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, right? It doesn't matter what chaos there is.
exactly.
The power in this time for us is profound. So anybody, who might be listening or watching or get this information, um, we all have incredible specific gifts of our perspective, and we have things to share, and we can be of service. And so, let this chaotic time, this fear, collectively, light a fire up our asses to show up differently, to show up more authentically in ourselves and see what comes out of it. How can you help the world? What can you birth into the world? And I'm so excited to see, I know in this time, whether people hear that message or not, people are coming into something right now, right? So I'm just excited to be a part of it and see what's going on around me. Like, if I'm learning how to do this, what are other people learning? Like,
Right.
whew,
Exactly.
crazy potential in every direction. Just so exciting. I think this is the most exciting time to be alive in totally opposite directions. But happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. This has been
Yeah.
outstanding.
Yeah. Thank you back. I really enjoyed it.